Hello, everybody, and
Hello.
welcome. Welcome to Dark Night of the Soul. This is our 4th episode now, and I'm really excited. We're both excited to have our friend Scott Beer at the Parade here with us today. Hi, Scott.
Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Boy, do I feel
Welcome.
like a thorn between two roses.
Oh, yes. I definitely feel maybe a thorn between two thorns right now. Hi, Patricia.
Hello. Everything good?
Yes, Patricia's wrangling. She's got a cat with her today.
Yeah.
Dennis, he's the cutest, so he might pop up on the screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, you guys, it is an honor to be here with both of you. And Scott and I go way back, and I knew that he would be perfect for this show because you're just a real raw person. I know what you've been through, at least a lot of it, and you're not only very open about that stuff, but you also have such a great perspective that you can give people about coming out on the other side. And you really are a very positive, uplifting person.
I have been for 60 of my 63 years.
Nice.
Right. I mean, I want to get into well, why don't you lead the way? Why don't you kind of tell us exactly how you want to go through your story? Obviously, for those of you just joining in, this show is called Dark Night of the Soul, and it's kind of about the shadow portion of the awakening and the hard stuff that we go through, which really in hindsight, we look back on and realize these were the things that happened for us so that we could grow as human beings. But it's a really dark, nasty thing to go through when you're going through it. And it feels like you're very alone. So that's why we talk about it.
It took me a couple of years since I left the Liberty Den to try to find my way back to a place to where I was not only delivering the messages that I felt God wanted delivered, but also would be real about my journey and my struggles and sometimes my successes. So I finally hit upon the name Untethering, because the only thing I could do to help people through the remainder of the Great Awakening is to reframe the last 10 years. Because we have all lived through some severe PTSD worldwide, and the lockdown and the COVID and the fear and the separation and everything was super traumatic for people, whether they want to admit it or not. And at least for me, I can't change what was done to us, but I could reframe it into what was done for us. And it gave me a way to stand back and look at it and try to take myself out of the equation. And so what I did was I mentally put myself on their team. And I said, if I was running this operation, what decisions would I have made? And if you think about it, they just got us through World War III. That's exactly what we lived through, except it wasn't kinetic. It was 5G, and it was a battle for our minds. And it was real, and it's still real, except now we're watching the good guys win. Thank you.
Yes.
But going through it, especially for people who didn't have any military training or experience, could not have been easy. One of the things you get from going in the military is in boot camp, they do one thing. They get you used to not knowing what's coming. They never tell you anything that you're going to do that day or that week or that month. Every day you wake up, you have no clue.
Wow.
And so you get, a couple months of that, and you get used to kind of being uncomfortable, not knowing what's coming. Well, most Anons never had that training. So, we always keep looking around the corner and keep trying, and we make our own rug pulls. And so we've created not only our own roller coaster, but we enhanced the one that we needed to go on anyways. And I'll explain why this operation was built in the order that it was. And maybe I could work it backwards so people can reframe and look back and say, instead of being angry or disappointed, hey, I lost this job, I lost my business, I didn't get to see grandma in the hospital. I mean, there's a lot of regrets. But also, if you look back and what they accomplished in 10 short years, the amount of collateral damage has been negligible at best.
Yeah.
And it's truly remarkable when you look at, they had to take, here, I'll explain what they did. Mike Flynn is the biggest liar on the planet, and I love that guy for that. Love him to death, because on November 20th, right after Trump won the first election, he goes on camera, says, we have an army of digital soldiers. No, he didn't. He had a plan to recruit an army of digital soldiers using the cyber division of the Coast Guard, which nobody knew even existed. And a year later, when they were done with the Q operation, they launched it. And what did they do? They recruited an army of digital soldiers. So they got the right brains, but the wrong hearts, and they knew it. So by recruiting the right brains, they got people who's, I'm not a big IQ guy, but I would guess between 125 and 160. And then they got people of certain personality types, typically loners, misfits, super competitive, love to win, used to working alone, game players and game solvers. And they got us addicted to playing a game. So they got the right brains. What they didn't get was the right hearts. So when you recruit a certain type of a profile, the problem is they're going to play the game early and they're going to get good at it. But when they go talk to their loved ones or their friends, they're always the know-it-alls and nobody wants to hear from us. And so we didn't know how to talk about this. And what Q did was they made sure we got everything wrong for years. That's why we never got the perp walk. Hillary never got her comeuppance. The National Guard was not deployed across 12 major cities. And I kept saying, why are they leaving us hanging out to dry? Because they needed to crush our egos systematically. When I got recruited at 18, it only took them 2 months to crush my ego and rebuild me. I was just a young kid. That's what boot camp does. They tear you down, they take away your identity, and they rebuild you as a soldier, and your identity is the patch on your arm, the platoon you're in, the army you're in, and the country that you're fighting for. Well, good luck doing that to a 50-year-old.
Right.
That takes 8 years, not 8 weeks. So for the first few years of the Q thing, they systematically destroyed our egos, knowing that those who would come back the right way would be humble servant leaders, which is what they needed for this phase of the operation. So as you guys are beginning to notice, what's happening organically is that people who are finding podcasts are just drifting away from those that are a little bit ego driven, of people telling you what to think and what's happening. And they're seeking people who have no ego in their show. And they're just saying, look what we found. Isn't this, help us figure this out. And this is why the Rambos, the News Trees and Daves, Parallel 8, this is why these shows are just growing organically, because people are sick and tired of watching beautiful people with perfect hair and suits and ties reading from teleprompters. And they want to see bald, ugly guys like me sitting in my house trying to tell you what I think I'm finding and including you in my journey.
Yeah.
Right.
And so this is why you will watch certain groups begin to just struggle, and certain groups will just organically grow because people have woken up and are just starting, and more are waking up. So personally, I've spent the last year mentoring people to get into podcasting and substacking, because I'm a big abundance guy, not a scarcity guy. And I know there's plenty out there, not only right now, but heaven forbid, 70, 80% of the people are just starting to rub their eyes and look around, and they know that that isn't real and that isn't real. So they're going to look for something that is real, and they're going to find all of us, no doubt in my mind. And for that reason, I'm actually starting a separate show on Mondays, probably this coming Monday, middle of the day, probably 11 to 1, called Mega Media Mondays. So I can just keep in a 2-hour period, people can go get a sample of all my friends doing podcasts and Substacks and get a feel for their personality and what topics they're passionate about. So as their friends are waking up, they can say, oh, you need to watch Rambo and Dave. These guys are good at this. Or Abs and Stormy, if you're learning about this, or you already are into Q, go watch them. Or if you want to learn about Q, go watch their show on Q for Dummies. And so whatever is coming is happening beautifully and organically. And whatever, this is power versus force. People are sensing certain podcasters and channels that are putting out power or are working through force. And then they're seeing other podcasters where it's just power. You can sense their passion and their love and how people talk to each other. And it's just like breathing, both for the people on both sides of the camera.
Yeah.
So
it's authenticity over everything else. People are being drawn to authenticity.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But let's go into the crushing of the ego, which brought, those who have made it through it are different people than we were 6 years ago. There is no doubt in my mind. And one of my friends named Mary did a lot of research that even Stephen Quast looked at her and he goes, you need to start writing. And she discovered not only how the military was reconfigured to work with Q and work with Trump to do what was needed to be done, but she also figured out what Q did to us. And it was called the salt and pepper exercise. Have you heard of what they do to soldiers in boot camp? And they did it to the Anons, and she figured it out and Quast went like this.
No, tell us. I'm dying to hear this.
Hey, my buddy Q-Ag finally got the scrapers to work on Truth Social. I'm getting my Trump alerts again. It's been 2 long weeks. Boy, are they lighting up.
Oh, nice.
If you guys ever need to get stamp on stuff, go to qag.news. This is kind of fun.
Absolutely.
Yay, they're all coming back.
Fun. Oh, I love that.
One thing would be better. Wouldn't it be funny if I went and looked and Q was dropping and not Trump?
Oh my God. Can you imagine if that happened and we were sitting here live, Scott? I would absolutely, I don't know what I would do. I'd do
that would be perfect, wouldn't it?
It would.
Change it up.
Yes. Can you hear us? Q, are you out there? One small request.
Bring it on.
Well, I'll get to the low points of this. No, but Trump is now showing up again on QAG. The low points I will talk about, but one of the high points was kind of funny. People called me the Q Whisperer because I would purposely go on the chans and poke them a little bit and see if I could get them to drop at a certain time. And I'd also see if I could get them to do specific things. And one of the things I asked them to do was on April 9th, I think, of 2020. And on a Saturday, I posted, I said, Dear Team Q, tomorrow would be a good day to clean up your page on the chans and put the placeholders back up. And by God, the next day, the placeholders were back up and the page was clean again. I'm like, wow, thank you. But the one time where I knew they were listening to us was funny as hell. And I was kind of a big red pilling guy back early on. And I red pilled a guy in my gym named Monty. And so I was over at his house on May 2nd, 2020. I remember it was my sister's birthday. And he lives on a cul-de-sac right behind me. It's a beautiful sunny day. And we're out in his driveway on this cul-de-sac, and 2 drives over is Mark. He's in our gym working on his lawnmower. And Monty says, go red pill Mark. I want to see how you do this. I'm okay. So we walk over and I'm just explaining from 80,000 feet, the whole Trump this isn't political. He's a good guy. He's protecting the children. What you're seeing is an absolute facade. And as we're talking, my phone goes, ding, and I had Q alert set on it. And I'm like, here, I'll just decode this in front of you, Mr. Hotshot. Well, I don't have my reading glasses because I'm old and the sun's shining and I'm doing this. And all I could see in tiny little print is where we go when we go all. So I hit the link and there's a video of me talking.
Oh
and I went and I looked over, I go, oh, this is embarrassing. I did this last week. Did I hit the camera button? I thought I hit my camera button.
No
so
way.
I go back and I hit it again and there's a video of me talking. I'm like, what the hell's wrong? Hang on, I go in the garage and I can see it with no sunlight and it's twitter.com/beer_parade. I looked at Monty. I go, I recorded this last week for my Twitter followers. Q just dropped my video. Monty goes, are you joking? I go, look. And he goes, my God, you are the king of red pilling, aren't you?
Oh my God, I love that.
So right when I'm red pilling somebody, Q goes, have some steroids. So
seriously,
I guess you wanted me on here for an hour and I will talk about that flag and that story.
Yes. Before you go into that, though, I want to hear this salt and pepper thing, though.
Oh, thank you for that. Sorry, I don't have a train of thought at my age. Even the locomotive gets.
I'll be your conductor.
Thank you. So Mary's going to be on with me here in 2 hours at 5 o'clock Eastern, and I've got my whole team together. If you guys want to pop over and check us out, but Mary is somebody who got to me from the Liberty Den. Here's a small world story. So she read a book called Raven Rock, which had to do with devolution, and she couldn't figure out how to get a hold of John. And I was always the guy on Liberty Den. Hey, here's my number. Get a hold of me. Here's my email. And so she sent me an email and said, I need to get this book to John. He needs to read it. It will enhance his devolution research. So I called her and we were talking and she goes, hey, you mentioned you live in Northeast Ohio. And I go, yeah. She goes, so do I. And I said, where? I said, what street? She's 15 minutes from me. So we met for dinner, became really good friends. Her and her husband are delightful. And then as I got talking with her, I realized she was not only an anon, she's a brilliant digger, jet pilot. And, but most of her life was just raising her 2 kids and sending them off to college, but just a brilliant lady. She was the one who dug into the military and figured out what they're now capable of doing, which when we plugged all that data into this work I'm doing with the guy on the couch in AI and his timeline, AI spit out something that blew our minds. And we actually ran it through mathematically and did shows on it to see if it was lying or not. And it's not. So the odds of the US military not being directly involved in every worldwide false flag or natural disaster in the last 10 years is 1 in 2 trillion. And we pieced it all together. And Mary was the one who had the missing piece. And when we ran into Stephen Quast, we ran this by him, and all he just kept going was,
wow.
And then he would look and says, you need to write. And so we kind of cracked the Da Vinci Code. So part of this, when she said the salt and pepper exercise, is how the military uses to find leaders who self-select inside of platoons. So when you go into basic training, they didn't do it to us, but General Quast said, yes, it's used, and it's used a lot, and it's used well. And this is what the Anons have lived through. So if you want to know why they gave us suffering, I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to tell you why it was a good thing. Okay?
Yes.
So when you go in the military, when you sit down your first couple of days, you're sitting at your table, and you have all the condiments and that. So you got salt and pepper, mustard, ketchup, relish, and it's on your table, and you pass it around. You're eating super fast because they're getting out of there, but you have everything. Well, after about a week, you look over and there's no mustard and ketchup, but you still have salt and pepper and relish. And then the next couple days later, there's no napkins. A couple days later, there goes the relish. Now you're getting down to like salt and pepper, and you're starting to get a little pissed. And then a couple days later, there goes the salt and pepper. Well, somebody in that platoon of usually about 30 guys is going to look around and go, damn it, I've had enough. And he gets the guts and he walks over to the drill sergeant's table and very timidly, standing at parade rest or attention, Drill Sergeant Sanborn, Private so-and-so, requesting permission to speak. Speak. Sergeant, speaking on behalf of the men, would it be possible to please get our salt and pepper back? Sure. Go get the salt and pepper. Here comes the salt and pepper. Guy goes back. He's the hero to the platoon. They go, didn't they kill you? He goes, no, he just gave us the salt and pepper back. Well, the platoon just found their leader. The guy with the guts, willing to do push-ups by himself if he's wrong, he had the guts to go over to the drill sergeants and ask for what we already had to begin with. We were only asking for stuff that was rightfully ours to begin with. What did Trump and Q do to all of us? They kept taking and taking and taking. Why? Because then we had to learn what was actually in the Constitution. We had to learn what was in our Bill of Rights. We had to learn how important our sheriffs are. We had to learn how corrupt the judges are, the DAs. And all of a sudden, we started getting strong and standing up. And they've been waiting for us as Americans to demand our damn constitutional rights back. Trump's just waiting. That's why, if you've noticed, every spokesperson, Cash, I love you, you're a spokesman. Bongino, love you, great spokesman. Pam, great spokesperson. Pete, perfect on camera. Do I think you guys are doing the jobs you say you're doing? No. Do I think they were done 8 years ago? Yes. You're just announcing the cleanup on aisle 6. But they're good at it. And so when it comes to the salt and pepper exercise, if you've noticed, all the spokespeople are parroting the same thing. Well, the people gave the president a mandate, so we're going to go do what the president mandates us to go do. Could they be more obvious in saying we were waiting for the people to tell the president, and now the president is telling us what you, the people, need us to go do?
I love it. I love that. You're right, because if it was all cleaned up for us, the lesson wouldn't have been learned. We would just go back, excuse me, to repeating history over and over again. You can't have it done for you. Just like everything else in life, you got to have it. You have to be the one to activate, to stand up, to stand your ground. The reason we're in this mess in the first place is because we got complacent, because we got lazy. We turned our brains over. We turned our country over. We turned the world over to these megalomaniacs because we were trying to stay comfortable. And so you're so right. Like, it's about pulling us out of that comfort and making us do it ourselves.
And we're getting better at it. And again, we're just now starting to recruit. And by the way, stop red pilling. Even though I was the king of red pilling, stop. Q's got this. I'm watching it all play out. Just the only thing really my show is geared toward untethering is helping people letting go of the pain and anger and resentment of what we lived through the last 8 years and embrace it with gratitude, because what a lovely exercise they put us through that hopefully the lessons will stick. And from my perspective, they have prepared us to be completely different people for what is coming. And well, y'all need to buckle up. I'm not going to anchor everything on the conversations I've had with General Quast, but there's enough there. And if you guys get a chance, go watch any of his interviews, not necessarily mine, but any of them. And he talks about the 7 pillars of prosperity because of emerging technologies. And when he uses the term emerging technologies, for a guy who built Space Force, that means they're already here and then they need to roll them out. So he talks about prosperity in the areas of water, energy, transportation, food, information, shelter, and healthcare. And after I interviewed him and I had time to think through our conversations, I shot him a text and I said, are you suggesting that what's coming will eliminate the lower 2 rungs on Maslow's hierarchy of human needs? And he said, yep.
Which are?
Well, the lowest rung is your food, water, shelter, heat, and procreation. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, Abraham Maslow, just look up his hierarchy of human needs or pyramid of human needs. But basically, there's 5 rungs that when you can't ascend until your lower rung, those needs are met. So if you don't have food and water or shelter, you can't think about love and self-actualization. You're thinking about food and water.
Yeah.
And it just burns up your RAM and everything until those are met. The second rung, you get into career and finances and your home and things like that. And then your third one is when you can focus on love and God and relationships. And then you'll get into self-fulfillment, self-actualization. But what he's talking about is a future right around the corner of complete transparency in the American government at all levels, which would put the power back in the hands of the American people forever. We weren't ready 8 years ago. We're ready now. He's talking about traveling anywhere in the world in less than an hour affordably, right around the corner. Free energy, little tiny nuclear boxes, which would not only power your house and everything you need to power, but would give you the ability to take that and live anywhere. How information is disseminated, which means, and once I pieced it all together and I asked him about it, he said, my vision is really close to accurate. What's coming is our ability to live anywhere we want, with anybody we want. You can, with this technology, pick a plot of land in the middle of the Sahara Desert and have all the food and water you want. You'll have internet access, you'll have energy, and you can make your own little commune. So let's say that the new We the Media decided we all liked each other and we were all going to go buy a little plot of land somewhere. We could build a We the Media compound. And when I asked him about this, and I said, the only thing that's missing is who's going to educate our children. And then when AI came along and I realized what AI could have done to educate me when I was a kid, God, I flunked out of school, flunked out of college. Nobody bothered teaching me the way I learned. And then I've realized with AI and in a communal setting, we can educate each other's children easily. And then the last kicker was, he said, you know, Scott, we were never built to live this close to each other and on top of each other. And I'm like, that explains all the crime in the cities. And everything we're seeing comes down to predictable human nature. So when you study people like General Quast, and to a lesser extent, people like General Flynn and Boone Cutler, these people are closet sociologist geniuses. And I'm watching them take mankind and slowly move us. And if you listen to their rhetoric closely, they all shifted about 8 months ago and they stopped talking about the movement and they started talking about we're just entering the initial phase. I'm like, what? We're just getting started? And all three of them said, yes, now you got to get back to some balance. 2 hours a day, do some digging, do some memeing, do some research, do your social media, but go out and get some exercise. Put your feet in the grass, eat good foods, take care of yourselves. And what they're teaching us is a new lifestyle. So we're ready that when we don't have to work, which is what's coming, AI and robotics are going to make many things obsolete quickly, but we're going to want to work, but we're going to do work we love.
Oh my God.
Because it won't be money driven. It will be love driven. I love mentoring and coaching people. While I'm out doing that one day, it won't surprise me if I come home, somebody who loves to paint houses painted my house. Won't surprise me in the least. So now let me get to the bad part on how I got to the good part.
Right.
So there's some good part. Getting here wasn't easy. Kate, you've known me now for almost 8 years, 7 years for sure, right?
Yes.
And when you first met me, I was one of the most optimistic, happy-go-lucky, cheerleading anons you ever met.
Yeah.
And that was my whole life until it wasn't. And so what I've learned about PTSD is that most of us mistakenly think, well, accurately, that Finn 1776, if you want to get me into a pissing match on a Flynn's a good guy, you picked the wrong guy on the wrong day, and I'll be glad to give you my number. You want to talk? You can reach me at 930-867-9305. Send me a text. Okay. We'll talk later today. You picked the wrong guy. Okay. So what was I talking about?
You were saying, well, you were happy-go-lucky when we all.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So what I learned about PTSD is, yes, you can get it in the military by looking over and watching your best friend's head get blown clean off. Yes, that happens. But most people don't realize that it could also be death by 1,000 cuts. And I've now watched everybody on this planet suffer. And the problem is they didn't know they were suffering. Well, neither did I. So here was my demise. And I don't know chronologically, it doesn't really matter, but it all happened within about a year or so. We'll just say COVID was most of it. And that's probably when everything hit. But so for me, when COVID hit, I had been self-employed for 30 plus years. And within a month, every email and phone call that came in was another client almost crying because they had to go on PPP or their budgets were cut to nothing. And many of them were closing their doors. And so one at a time, it wasn't the money. I was losing my sense of purpose. And men in particular tend to get our sense of worth through what we can produce and provide. Right or wrong, it's just, Wayne Dyer talks about the 4 phases of a man's life, and he's right. And when you're a young man, you're in the athlete phase. In the middle age, you're in the warrior phase. And now I'm at the statesman's phase where I'm trying to give everything back. But when you're in those earlier phases, you do have an ego for a reason. And it helps you go out and win the war out in the world of getting a new client or getting a sales away from your competitor or whatever that is. So when a man is stripped of his job, usually if they get fired without much warning, they typically spiral and they don't know why they're doing it. It's almost easier to lose a spouse. I hate to say it. Somebody just walks in and says, I'm getting divorced. But when the boss says, we don't need you here anymore, it's devastating for men.
Yeah.
So I would find myself for the first time in 30 years, waking up on Monday and doing what I always do, look at my calendar for the week, and there was nothing on it. Wow. I had no appointments to mentor this salesperson, no appointments to mentor this business owner. I had nothing. And then when you compound it, now I'm going to get to that flag and that story with my family who bought into rightfully so. They were perfectly brainwashed by mainstream media and big pharma and big tech, and they did a great job. Well, they became frightened of me and Patty. And so for every big event, there would be 50 of them and me and her here by ourselves having Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner by ourselves. And the heartbreaking part for me was compounded because when I was in the military, there was a year where nobody knew where I was and I made no phone calls, sent no letters. But for that year, I had Thanksgiving and Christmas on the other side of the world while my family was over here without me. And that was bad enough. But what made it worse was to know they were 20 minutes away having Christmas and Thanksgiving without me. That hurt.
Absolutely.
So I began drinking more than I used to. I had nothing, no job. I had no clients. I couldn't build my business. I had no purpose. And I fell into a depression, first one ever in my life. And it was probably 6 months, maybe before the Liberty Den, I think. So when you and John asked me to join you on that show, it was a little bright light at the end of my week of something I could look forward to. So I would stay as sober as I could until 9 o'clock on Friday. And then sometimes I didn't succeed in that. And I'm not proud of how I probably came across years ago, but I was in a really, really bad way and trying to fake it just to get through a 2 or 3 hour show with you and John. And then I could go back to being miserable again. So we probably did Liberty Den for like 6 months, 8 months. And then this Thread Fest came along and I said, I'd love to give a talk if you'd let me talk about, I'm really good at red pilling and I'm good and I can mix in the 4 behavioral styles and teach people how to red pill their loved ones by giving a book to an analytical thinker or telling stories to relators or socializers. And so I was going to give that speech. The event was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was scheduled for 10 o'clock Sunday morning. And this young lady was scheduled for, you were going to follow me after lunch, I think. Mm-hmm. And I am a trained public speaker and she is not. And so I'd get butterflies, but now mine fly in formation, whereas before they would just kill each other. She's still in the butterflies killing each other phase. And I'll get back to why we switched times in a minute. So that was Sunday morning. I'm ready to give my talk Sunday morning at 10. So on Saturday, I'm sitting in the audience doing what I always do as a public speaker. I'm going to watch you like a hawk and I'm going to steal your gestures, your pauses, how you walk. And I'm good at watching people better at me and just stealing their good stuff and then making it part of my thing. So I on Saturday, I'm doing what I'm always doing. I'm sitting next to Patty and I'm just watching intently. And the problem is there was a flag behind the speakers. So when I got there on Friday or Thursday, I think it was Thursday, I think you guys accidentally forgot to tell me about the speakers night on Thursday night. So when I got there on Friday morning, Patrick had this thing on the floor and it was in 2 pieces. And I looked over and I go, that is beautiful. Are you guys putting that up for this or something? He goes, yeah, we'll put it behind the speakers. I go, where did you guys get that flag? I love that flag. He said, well, some Anon woman painted it. And I go, you're kidding. He goes, no, she's here. I go, you're kidding. Is it for sale? And he goes, yeah. I go, what is she asking? He goes, $7,000. I went, it's about $6,800 over my budget, but it's beautiful. So the next day they had the flag up on 3 bar stools behind the lectern and the speakers were standing there, and all day long for the first time in my life, I got a voice in my head, which has never happened. And it started off almost as a whisper and it said, look at the flag. I'm like, what? Look at that flag. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking at it. Shut up. I'm trying to listen to the speaker. This has never happened. 20 minutes later, a little louder. Look at that flag. Now, when they set it up on the bar stools, there was a little crevice. If you can look closely, it's in 2 pieces. And it had to be because look at the size of this.
Right.
Wow.
So here's a dividing line. Here's half. Here's half. Well, nobody bothered clamping it. So when they put it on the bar stools, the top separated like this. And I didn't think a thing about that until I tried to go to sleep that night. And the voice all day long, look at the flag, shut up, look at the flag. I'm looking, shut up. and it gets louder and more persistent, and then it stopped. I think you got in the middle of the afternoon. So that was on Saturday. So I go to dinner that night with Donna Brandenburg and a bunch of other people. And at dinner, when we're done, I'm there with Patty, and some guy comes up and hugs me from behind, and I could feel wet on my face, and he was rubbing his face on my face and hugging me, and I kind of did this. It was a guy named Ryan, and he's crying his eyes out. He's one of the attendees. And that's how he introduced himself to me. And he said, I needed to come over and tell you something. God just told me you need to know this. I'm like, yeah, sit down. And he told me a story that blew my mind. And he said, he goes, Scott, look over there. And he pointed, and he goes, you see that guy sitting there with that woman? I go, yeah. He goes, his name's Ron. And I said, okay. And he said, we sat together at lunch today. And I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this and why are you crying? And he said, well, at lunch today, we were all just doing that general sort of get to know you sort of thing. And we were talking about where we're from and a little bit about our family. And Ron asked me where I was from. And I said, Denver. He goes, oh, I'm from Denver. He goes, oh, cool. And he says, tell me about your family. And now Ryan's crying his eyes out. I'm riveted. I'm this far from his face and we're doing this. And I'm like, man, this guy is in some severe pain right now. So he said, when Ron asked me about my family, it got a little difficult. He said, I told him I have a little 9-year-old daughter, but we lost her mother a couple of years ago in a horrific car accident. Wow. And Ron says, that wasn't on highway blank, at exit blank, was it? Ryan said, it was. And that Ron goes, it wasn't on this date, was it? And Ryan goes, it was. How in the hell would you know that? Ron said, I was the EMT that tried to pull your wife out of that car.
Wow.
And I tried to save her life, but I couldn't. And now I'm going to start crying all over again. And he said that Ryan says, I wasn't going to come, but my wife in heaven said, take the money you were going to use to take your daughter to this skating thing or whatnot. And she said, you need to go to Nashville. And you're going to find some healing there. Now, that's his wife from heaven telling him, sell those tickets, get to Nashville. And then he comes up to me and he says, I need to tell you this story. And I'm like, geez, wow. What am I going to do with that? Well, it turns out there was a reason for it. I just didn't know it. So after dinner, we all break up and me and Patty go back to the room, and it's late. It's after midnight. And I'm speaking the next morning, and it's a speech I've given in business 50 times. I could stand on my head and give that talk. All I have to do is change a couple words from sales to red pilling. And I mean, I got this. I've written books on it. I got this down. So I fall asleep like a baby, knowing that for once I don't have to get up at 5 a.m. and tweak my speech because I got this one down cold. The problem is a half hour of good sleep. I sit bolt upright and the voice is back, but it's loud. And I'm sitting in a room. It was 1 a.m. I remember glancing at the clock radio and I'm like, I got to get some sleep. Shut up. And this time the voice was almost angry. Why didn't you look at the flag? And it was my voice. I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but this has never happened before or since. But here's what happened. 1 a.m. Why didn't you look at the flag? I'm like, who are you? They said, you're about, and I always say they. They always said we, never I, which is strange. But they said, you're about to find out, and it's good. You're about to have the greatest day of your life, and you deserve it. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they said, the flag. Why didn't you look at that flag? And I said, I stared at it all day. I saw the flag. And they said, no, you looked. You didn't see it. I said, well, so we're going to argue semantics. You won't tell me who you are. You won't tell me we're nitpicking something this simplistic. I said, you need to tell me what's going on. And they said, you're hurting, and that ends today. And I'm going to start crying. They said, your soul is too important to us, and we will never lose your soul, ever. And you have been hurting for so long that today is your day of healing. Now, are you ready to look at the flag? And now you'll know it when you see it. And they said, just close your eyes and picture the flag. So I did. And I saw exactly that on the bar stools, the way it was left when I left the room. And they said, now you got it. You're looking at it, right? Now we want to help you see it. They said, stop looking at that. Now picture anything else. So in my mind, I saw a small sailboat out in the distance on a perfectly calm body of water. I don't know if it was a lake or an ocean, but whatever was out there was one of the most peaceful things I've ever seen. And they said, now go look. And I went back and tried to picture the flag, and I couldn't. All I saw was a giant heart that was cleaved right down the middle like that flag was, broken in two. And they said, until now, that's been your heart. And they said, now that we've got your attention, we're going to show you how healing happens, and it's going to happen for you today. This is exactly what you're going to do. And they gave me instructions. Number one, your speech is garbage. I'll never forget they used the word garbage. And they said, so you're not giving that speech, you're giving our speech. Number two, the outfit Patty picked for you, wrong outfit. You are going to go into your closet, dirty or clean, and get the worst clothing you brought. And you're going to wear that when you walk on stage. Number three, we need you empty. You will not eat anything before you go give our talk. Number four, bring a chair. You're going to need it. And all this time I'm thinking, have you ever seen me speak? I'm all over the place. They said, bring a chair. You're going to need it. Bring water. You're going to need it. As soon as you walk on that stage, you're going to go blank and it'll be perfect. And we'll take it from there. And they said, when it's done, you won't remember anything. And even when you play it back later, you're not going to believe that's you. And this is where it gets really freaky. So this goes on for 5 hours until the sun started peeking up. And I asked them all sorts of questions, and they answered all of them. And one of the main things that stuck out was they said, our son misses you. You guys used to talk all the time. You don't ever talk with us anymore. And I never forgot that I used to always have an internal monologue with Jesus, like we were best friends. And I had realized I had stopped doing that at some point in time. So I know we don't have all day, so I'll start putting a bow on this. So what happened was, as soon as Patty woke up, I said, you're not going to believe what my night was like. And I had been up all night, but I was just full of energy. I wasn't tired at all. And I told her the whole story, and she's like blown away, and I'm blown away. So we go down to breakfast, and I'm not going to eat, obviously. So I'm just having coffee, and somebody just glanced over and said, you're not eating? I go, nah, not hungry. I'll eat after the speech. And I didn't think a thing about it. So I go into the room to make sure nothing's changed, because as a professional speaker, I want to make sure they didn't move anything on me. I know where I want to walk, what aisles I'm going up and down. And I walked in and I looked up and I fell into the chair next to me and I just started crying.
Wow.
Somebody in the middle of the night took it upon themselves to go in and make that flag whole. Somebody clamped it together. And I looked up and I saw my heart in one piece. And God had said, today you're going to get a gift from us. And you'll know it the minute you see it. And it's just for you, kid. And when I saw that my heart had been made whole again, I mean, I just couldn't stop crying. And then I knew that whatever speech I was going to come out of me had to do with healing and not with red pilling. And so now it's like 9 o'clock. And I'm like, well, thank God I only have an hour so I can get this thing out of the way, because I don't even know what's coming. And here comes John. Hey, Kate's freaking out. She can't wait till 2. Can she have your 10 o'clock slot? And normally I'm like, hell yeah, I could give this speech standing on my head. Now I'm like, yeah, I guess so.
Effing Kate.
And I'm like, now I got 5 more hours of this and I don't know what's going to come out of me.
Oh my God.
So I said, yeah, I'll take the 2 o'clock or the after lunch or whatever it was. I'm like, oh man, God, you better have this one, because my speech was pretty good. And now I'm sitting there in a workout t-shirt, ratty jeans, and sandals, because they said, wear your crappiest stuff. And I followed all their instructions. So at lunchtime, we had these Jimmy John's or whatever box lunches. And I didn't say anything. I just quietly pushed my little the middle of the table, and I'm just drinking something. And the same person that was sitting at breakfast was sitting at the other table, and he looks over, he goes, "Oh, not eating lunch either, are you? What are you, on a fast or something? You're skinny enough." And now I was kind of hungry, but I said, "Nah, not hungry." I said, I'm saving this one to go. I'm going to have this for a midnight snack. Don't eat anything. We need you empty. And as I'm sitting there not eating, Donna Brandenburg comes walking up with Matt Trump. And they tapped me on the shoulder, and out of the blue, she said, "We need to pray over you right now." Whoa, God sending in the troops. And I stood up and I said, "You have no idea how much I could use a prayer over me right now." And I didn't say, as soon as we're done eating, I'm walking in there, and I can't wait to hear the speech y'all are going to hear, because I don't know what it is either. So they prayed over me, and I just felt the Holy Spirit go through me. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I don't know what it is, but God, this one's yours. And then Donna said, "How long are you supposed to speak?" And I said, "I think 45 minutes to an hour." And she goes, "Well, I'm running for governor of Michigan, and I'd like to maybe give an announcement. Could I have like 10 minutes of the opening part of your speech?" I said, "Donna, you could have the whole hour. That'd be great. I don't even want to walk up there." And so she said, "Would you introduce me?" And I'd had dinner with her the night before, and I got a real feel for her as a brilliant entrepreneur, tough as nails. So I had forgotten I had said it till I watched the speech a few months later, but I walked up there and I put a chair on there and I brought water. And then I just said, "Before I give my speech, I want to introduce you." And I just did this whole thing. And then I said something that was really funny. Donna Brandenburg, who is a smoking hot version of Donald Trump himself. And then I got off the stage and she talked for however long. And then she just turned around and gave me a weirdest look. I was sitting down left of the stage, and she looked at me with the strangest expression. She was leaning down to hand me the microphone like, "Sucks to be you." Now, remember, I'm a guy who loves to give a speech. And I looked at her like, "Yep, sure does." And I don't know what came out of me, but I remembered talking about opening with Ryan and Ron's story about how you'll find healing in the strangest places if you're open for it. And how these two guys who had no business meeting down here this weekend, the one guy who needed healing the most, whose wife told him to get down here, got to meet the one guy that tried to save his wife's life. Turned out they both have daughters the same age, and they become best friends. And Ryan was getting his healing that weekend. So we started talking. I guess God was talking about healing. And then I told the story a little bit. And when I went back and tried and saw my speech, it was horrible, but it worked. But I told bits and pieces of my conversation with God. And then I said, and you know, they told me that flag was a metaphor for my heart. And then I said, when I walked in today, that thing was made whole again. And I guess that today, you guys are going to help make me whole again. I don't know what we're going to do or what's going to happen. And I did something I never do. And as a public speaker, you never turn your back on an audience. Even if you're walking away from them, you avoid it. I was sitting on that chair, and God stood me up, turned me around, and sat my ass back down. And I was there on the chair backwards like this, looking at that. And I gave a speech to that flag, and I don't remember a damn word about it, but in the speech, broke it in two, and everybody remembered it was in half. And I go, "Yep, over here is me, the only one in my family who ever served in the military. And over here is my whole family who has been judging me and my wife and separating us from everything and everyone." And I said, someday they're going to watch this speech. And I forgave my whole family in front of the world. And I meant it. Wow. And then the whole thing was about forgiveness and healing and non-judgment. And then when I guess I was out of words to say, I just said, so I guess if today's my day of healing, if any of you would pray for me, I could use that right about now. And I'm sitting there with my back to the audience, my arms up on the back of the chair. And all of a sudden I felt a hand on my shoulder. And I felt another hand on this shoulder, and somebody put their hand on the back of my head. And then these people are laying hands on me and praying. And I'm just sitting there crying uncontrollably.
Wow.
And as they're praying, I heard one guy praying. And I remember now I'm starting to wake up again. And I remember thinking, man, that guy can pray. That guy can pray. Well, it turns out it was praying medic. And he was leading a prayer. And then when he ran out of gas, somebody else started praying. And then when they ran out of gas, somebody else started praying. When that was done, the speech was done, and I could barely stand up. I mean, I was just quivering jelly. And then I remember I turned around, and Kate, this is going to get a little personal, but this is one of the reasons that God wanted me out of the Liberty Den, because I didn't realize Brian Cates was sitting there filming this thing and putting it up on the internet. So I gave out my name and phone number to the world. I just had said, for the couple hundred who are here today, you're my new family. And I want to stay in touch with all of you. And I meant it. I said, please text me now. Get out your phones. Here's my number. And I gave it out, and my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. At the same time, wow, John was sending me a long text about stop praying at the end of the Liberty Den. So what he saw me do probably irritated him, because I said, I'm coming up to talk about red pilling and behavioral styles. And I went up and I threw him a curveball. I went up there and talked about God. Well, he probably wasn't too happy with me, right? And it's his show, not mine. So I never saw the text. I got 200 texts coming in. And right in the middle of there was one from John who says, by the way, if you can remember, stop praying on Friday nights. Never saw it. The next Friday night when I go home, I end with a prayer. The next day I get a text from John this long of why I'm no longer on the Liberty Den, because I disrespected his desires. I definitely disrespected his girlfriend. And they just don't need somebody like me on that show anymore. And I'm like, why didn't you just call me and tell me? I would have told you what happened. So that was the end of the Liberty Den for me, which put me back into a depression. So I made it out for about 4 days. And so there went, my one little ring I could hang on to on Friday nights, and I could work toward that and start building. And then that was gone. So here we go again. But I had 220 new friends. And I started calling and texting and calling and texting. And then, hey, I got a Friday night Zoom. Come on in my Zoom. And I used my Friday night Zoom to bring in a whole slew of new anons so they could all love on each other. And it worked. And I got to watch people just love on each other and help each other. And we took that whole amazing vibration of Threadfest, and many of them came into my life because of that speech and me asking for help I needed in the worst way when I was lowest in my life. And I showed people how God was working through them to help me. Not you, God using you to help me. And I went from the lowest point of my life with nothing to look forward to, no business to build, no money coming in. We had blown through my wife's inheritance, all the money I had made working for myself. We sold every asset we had, and we had nothing and no hope. And it was through people loving on me where I got to see how God will use people for his will. And for the first time, I let people help me. And the only way I could get to that decision was remembering why I wasn't depressed, because my whole life I was able to go help other people. I could coach, I could mentor, I could recommend books, I could make introductions, I could just help people. And I remembered that I always felt best about myself when I was helping other people. So why would I rob other people of the opportunity to feel best about themselves helping me?
Yes.
That's when everything began turning around. Was I had to, what's the word I'm looking for? When you just give it all, I had to quit. I had to, what is it when you succumb? You just totally
surrender.
I had to surrender. Thank you. I knew it would take somebody from Europe to teach me English.
Well, I've been talking about the whole surrender because, it's part of the dark night of the soul. And I love that you said, that like the Liberty Den was your whole thing, but maybe it actually wasn't. It was supposed to close. And, when one door closes, another one
Yes.
opens.
And you know what? Thank you, because I want to publicly exonerate John Harold about one thing. Very soon after that falling out, he reached out to me and he said, dude, you need your own show. Of anybody I've ever seen in this movement, you've got everything going for you. You're a Q guy, you're charismatic, you're funny. You've got, everybody knows you. You'll never be hurting for, audience or speakers. And he actually, and I have the recording, he stopped what he was doing and got on Zoom, and we recorded a StreamYard session where he was showing me how to launch and host a show. So it wasn't like he booted me out and left me hanging. He didn't. He actually tried to help me, and I want that on record. So that's important to me. And I always give people their due when it's due. And in that case, he really did try to help me. So anyways, so let's get back to the happy stuff. Go ahead, Patricia.
Well, I was just thinking about that, because you said, you were not allowed to pray anymore, which is very interesting because at the same time, you were just in touch with God, so to speak. So for somebody then saying you're not allowed to pray, that I do feel that you were led out of there because, that was not your calling.
Well, look where I am now.
Yeah. So,
everything I do is about God.
Exactly. You get to do what you needed to do. This is probably because, when we are desperate, when we're in a dark path, we tend to grab onto whatever, right? Just to make us feel happy. And we think that's the right thing. But then, somehow universe, God, whatever you want to call it, always steers you away. And then you're like, now what? I need this. But essentially, actually, you don't. You need to walk your path. You need to, go where you're happiest. And at that moment, you might not realize it, but you do now, right?
Oh, that's why I reframe everything. I look back on everything that happened. I go, thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. And, it's interesting now is that a lot of my shows are talking with people who their old identity was stripped from them, their career, their business or whatnot. And what's weird is nobody wants to go back to that.
No, but
they don't want their job back. They don't want their career back. They don't know what's next, but they don't want that.
I've seen this 100 times as well, because, we're all in this deep hole and we're like, scared of the unknown, really. Right. Because, letting go of that, what we've always known. And you talked about losing purpose. And this is so typical for the dark night of the soul as well, is where whether it's about losing somebody and having grief or losing a job, whatever, we always go through this moment of losing our identities, but also losing our purpose and refinding the purpose. That's a real difficult one. Now, obviously, you had an extraordinary, way of healing, but yeah, for other people, it might be a bit of a longer path, whatever, but it's always about finding your purpose again. And, I'm like still in the middle of that myself and trying to figure out like, what do I want? Right. And
something tells me you're doing it right now.
Right. Yeah. Things happen while we don't even notice it. Right.
Yeah.
Only after the fact. And we look back, right. We're like, oh, this was all so needed. This had to happen. Yeah. Right.
And I'll tell you, for all of you who are still in pain or have worked through your pain, that pain was to temper you for exactly where you are right now.
Yes.
Yeah, everything happens for a reason. And sometimes in the thick of it, it's so ugly and it's so messy. And being a human being is just a messy experience. Mm-hmm. And it is why we need each other, because the only way that we can make sense of that is to watch other people that have been through something similar and see that they've gotten out on the other end, because otherwise it just feels like punishment. It just feels mean and cruel. And it is, but just like a baby has to go through pain and suffering in order to learn how to walk, in order to learn how to do all of the things that a baby does. But if a baby doesn't ever take the steps and fall down on its butt, and then it will never learn to walk. And so in that moment, the baby could say to itself, if it had the capacity, this is so cruel. I don't want to walk. I have everything I need right where I am. I don't mind living in diapers. I don't mind having everybody take care of me. I have this talk actually with my son a lot, because he actually laments growing up. It's like he has the perspective already of not wanting to grow up. And I don't want him to either. I want to say to him, yeah, dude, don't do it. It's a trap. But I have to tell him, so many experiences that are so wonderful and beautiful you can't have unless you do grow up. You'll never be a dad yourself. You'll never be, you'll never get to do something where you feel like you have a huge purpose until you're an adult. These are the things, like, yes, it's ugly and it's messy, but there is a purpose for it. And all of the suffering, as long as it literally doesn't kill you, you will get through it. There is a path out, right?
I've got a saying about this, and I hope people write this one down. This one changed my life. And it has to do with Western culture and what a mistake we've made. And here's the saying: learning comes from studying, but knowledge comes from failure. Where does wisdom come from? Suffering. Those are the lessons that stick forever. And everything in Western culture has been to train us to avoid suffering. There's a medicine for everything. No pain, a little headache, take a couple of aspirins. You know what? You lose a loved one. Hey, here's some tranquilizers. And at the end of the day, we just got put through shared suffering. And that's why. Go ahead.
Sorry. So we need those emotions and pains because, like with the headache, there might be something wrong with your back or whatever needs to be adjusted, but we wouldn't have that pain. Your body is always warning you. And the same with emotions, right? As for with grief, I read something so beautiful. It said, grief is like love that doesn't know where to go, and then it transforms in tears. And it was something in that line. It wasn't that like precise, but and I love that because I went through grief, and then I thought, it's just love that doesn't know where to go. And so you need to let it out. You need to release it, right? We all need to release emotions and whatnot, but eventually we always find our path back. But it's beautiful what you said about, wisdom and knowledge.
Well, not only just wisdom, but suffering also brings us something else. And when you think of the pinnacle of humanity, what do we think of? We think of heroes, the hero journey. Well, suffering is also what gives us empathy. And what creates heroes? Empathy. Empathy for your fellow man. You're willing to put their lives in front of yours because you have empathy, because you honor the dignity of other human life so much that you'll literally sacrifice yourself for that. And that comes from a deep concern and understanding. And you don't get that without suffering. You don't go through an easy, beautiful life and just automatically have that instilled in you, unless, there are people that can learn without having to go through the depths of it. In my experience, though, the people who have it kind of down pat are the ones that have had the ugliest lives and been through the worst shit, maybe even been to prison or, had drug addiction, alcoholism, maybe they were homeless, all of the things that we would think are the worst experiences that you can have as a human being. I mean, that's some of the surface stuff. Also abuse. I mean, abuse is.
I need to jump in and tell you about the healing with my family and how I facilitated that.
Yeah.
This is a great one to close on. And I'm very respectful of the time for you and your audience.
Don't worry about it.
Once I worked my way through everything, I called back everybody who was involved in my family and making those decisions that maybe me and Patty shouldn't, because they were worried about the little grandkids and we would show up unvaxxed and kill everybody. And that's the story that was in their minds. And I called everyone, and here's the first thing that came out of my mouth. I owe you a huge apology. I've been wrong about almost everything in the last few years. And what me and Patty put you guys through regarding those holiday events must have been terrible for you guys. I can't imagine the calls, the emails, the texts. Who's going to get a hold of Scott and Patty? I don't want to do it. Somebody's got to get a hold of them. And as soon as I said this must have been hard for you guys, literally you could hear it come out of their mouth, and they're like, oh my God, you have no idea. We hated it. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to approach it, blah, 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 blah. And they never once asked, how was it for you? But they were able to get out how bad it was for them. And then everything changed. And I didn't want, nor did I need an apology or them to say, oh, it must have been bad for you cooking for two. That never happened. But what did happen is they could gush and get it out. And that's all I needed. I didn't need an I told you so. I no longer wanted an apology. I just wanted the relationship back. That's what happens. What's that?
I was just going to say, you created a vacuum for that to happen. If you push back in the other way saying you did this, this, and this, and this hurt me, it's going to make them back up. But
that's why our egos need to be taken out of the equation so that I could facilitate the healing with no judgment.
Right.
All I wanted was to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody and just say, how are you doing? And we could just talk. Right. So by sincerely apologizing, and that's why Q made sure we got everything wrong. Because they remembered I was wrong about the National Guard, and I was wrong about Hillary, and I was wrong about everything. So it gave me an honest way to say I was wrong about just about everything. Well, leaving the door open for where we are now.
But this is what I find really interesting that I learned, like the more that we suffer and go through hard times, the more you realize we don't know nothing.
Right.
Because, we've got this ego going on and we're like, I'm doing this and that, and I know this and that. And then the more you start falling and tripping over yourself, the more you're like, hang on, I don't know nothing. And but the more that you realize that, the more you can also be open to new things and to different ways of approaching things. I mean, I definitely softened a lot. I was quite harsh and very masculine and very, aggressive. And I still can be at times, but I definitely, definitely softened me a lot as to, the hurdles that I've went through. And I think this counts for this is why we have this show as well, right? It's not, a lot of times we do hear how it's so great on the other side when you got out, whatever. But we do also want to hear like the bad side, like how did it feel when you were in that dark space? Because that's a lot of times that people don't really share, but loads of people are going through this. And what I hear now, the feedback I get also on this show is like, it's so nice to hear that we're not alone in this. And pretty much everybody's going through it, sooner or later, or they've been through it. Mm-hmm. But I do think everybody can recognize themselves in whichever story,
Kate, if it's still convenient, could you just pull up that graphic I dropped on?
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to help people kind of mentally remember this. So I did a graphic today, and I'll read it for those of you driving. And the graphic is just regular people walking down the street, just regular folks, except they're wearing bandages, and some of them are bleeding a little bit, and they're bolstering each other up. And you wonder, what do these people just live through? And then for those of you driving, I said, please commit this image to memory. You're going to need it. This is a metaphor for every single person currently in your life and everyone you will meet in the near future, except all their injuries are in their heart and between their ears. You can't see them. With all that humanity has endured, regardless of which side of the COVID or political or other BS that you or them fell on each side of the fence, it doesn't matter. We all have suffered various degrees of PTSD, every single one of us. So please, be kind, be loving, be patient, be empathetic. When they wake up, be their nurse and not their expert. Stop red pilling. When they wake up, the last thing you're going to say is, what took you so long? I knew that 5 years ago. No, those people are hurting. And when they wake up, the pain is going to be so intense of their cognitive dissonance when they realize that their entire life and their belief systems were built on falsehoods. It is going to be excruciating. And this is why it's taken 8 years and not 8 weeks, kids. This slowly waking up is the only way we were going to get people through this with their sanity and their hearts in a place where it can start mending. Our job is to mend their hearts. Forget what comes out of their mouth. Forget their minds are going to be jumbled. Connect with them with their heart. No judgment, patience, and let them figure it out on their own. Don't tell them what happened. Just say, that's interesting. Tell me more. Oh, that's, you're not the only one talking about that. Let's go look at that together. I'm interested in that too. And so that's why when you guys will start stumbling across the website at magazine.us, it's to help people red pill themselves without anybody yammering in their ear. Let them watch their own videos, their own Substacks about what they're waking up to. So I built a website just to help people wake up by themselves.
Well, I think also that's what Q meant when he said, when one falls, pick them up. And, before we were all like, oh, the left and oh, the right and, fighting each other. But now I'm looking at those people that we call the left. And I'm thinking, there's a lot of things that I actually can love them for and agree with them. Like, you see somebody that has a picture of a cat and I'm like, that's just an animal lover as well. It might be on the left. I don't care. But that person loves an animal. So, it's the little things that we might actually get our guards down and start to approach others in a different way instead of with this pride and ego. And yeah, definitely. I love that post, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a great post. And I love that you're talking more about getting away from red pilling because, yeah, there is a difference. There are two different things. There is red pilling, there's being red pilled, and then there's the great awakening and there's being awakened. And you can't go through the awakening without the dark night of the soul. So, yeah, you can understand that there's corruption and you could be red pilled to the systematic destruction of our country and the world and all of that. And that's all really important stuff. And that can be the catalyst. But the real stuff, the nitty gritty, lies in the awakening, which is the crumbling of the ego. And so you can have that growth. There is no golden age with society the way that it is and has been. The only way that there is a golden age is if we all elevate ourselves as human beings, become more empathetic, become kinder, become less egoic, become less selfish. So yeah, it's up to us. Trump can't do that for us. Nobody can come in and puppeteer us and make us decent human beings. There is no golden age without golden people.
In psychology, there's a thing called polarity or duality. And basically it states that you can never truly appreciate unconditional love until you've experienced abject hatred. And we have been living through this side of that so that when we get to this side of this, we'll never take it for granted ever again. So what they've put us through is to get us to a place where we now have a new lifestyle and a new culture of always looking out for each other, always helping each other. And only then could they put the power back in our hands, because then we would be a caring, loving society of people ready to take over our government, because it would then be full of people just like us. And the last thing I'll say, and this is kind of important, and it's a way for people to soften their hearts for what is coming. Of all the things that General Quast said to me that really baked my noodle was when I asked him, when I realized he was going to tell me everything. So I just went for the jugular. And on my pre-show interview, I said, where are we in the phase of the operation? I couldn't believe he answered the question. And he's the king of plausible deniability. So he won't ever talk about Q, but he sure won't run from it either. And his answer was perfect plausible deniability. Remember Q had the 3 movie posters? Mm-hmm. General Quast said, well, think of an operation in 3 specific phases. Which means, oh, so the movies aren't going to play concurrently. They're going to play consecutively. I got you. So what was the first phase? And he said, now I interviewed him 6 months before the 2024 election. So Biden is supposedly still in office with 6 months to go. So he said the first phase was we had to catch them committing new crimes and make it irrefutable evidence so there'd be no pushback. And I said, please tell me that was Trump's first term. He goes, yeah, I'd agree with that. Second phase, he said, we had to show the world what a rogue government was capable of doing to good people if left without proper checks and balances. And I'm like, oh, please tell me we're wrapping that one up on election time. And he goes, wouldn't argue with that either. Now I'm holding my breath and I go, all right, final phase. And his answer surprised me. And he said, well, what do you think would happen if we made the government completely transparent at all levels very quickly? And I said, ooh, government fixes itself. It's the Hawthorne effect. And he said, close. And then he said, you are a geek. Nobody knows what that is. And the Hawthorne effect was simply an experiment done by these sociologists back in the Industrial Revolution. And they theorized that people's behavior would improve the minute they know they're being watched and measured. And so I just assumed that if the government was transparent and we could all watch and measure, they start flying right. And then he said, you're partially right, but the small part. And I'm like, ooh, okay. So I got a D- on the quiz. I just want to know what an A looks like. And he said, would it surprise you to know that most of those people you guys rightfully despise are actually good people? Remember Q talked about that? There's more good than bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
General Quast said it almost verbatim. And then I said, oh my God, they're working under duress, aren't they? And he said, now you see the picture. And I couldn't figure out how they were going to drain the swamp if 90% of the House and Senate were replaced overnight. And then it all struck me. Those people have been working for decades, hating every day of their life, because if they didn't do exactly what the cabal made them do, their grandchildren and children were going to be put through torture we can't even begin to fathom. So I'm telling you people this so you soften your hearts. Stop judging other people that you don't know. It's not good for you. In fact, it lowers your energy and vibration. I have no idea if Tom Hanks or Kevin Spacey or Schiff, Schumer, or Pelosi ever did anything.
Yep.
And remember, Q kept saying knowingly. So that means there are two types of people we're going to watch go through this justice phase. There are those who did it knowingly, and nobody's going to walk from that. If they harmed children and they did bad things, they are going to pay.
Right.
And they are going to pay plenty. Don't put your heart on that penalty. You don't need to watch somebody hang. It's not good for you.
No.
You just need to know that they've been handled and let God deal with them. Okay.
Yeah.
And for the rest of them, I pray for their redemption. I pray for their souls. And if they've been working under duress for year after year, decade after decade, I really feel sorry for them. I feel terrible.
And also what you said about the red pilling, right? Like stop red pilling. And I realized, because I mean, I guess we've all been there, right? That's when you're not ready, you're not ready. But when you're ready, you'll come in that path anyway. So, you know, I've had like a certain point, I was like, what am I actually doing? Because, you know, you cannot force certain things through people if they're not ready for it. And so, and then now you've got a whole new wave of people again, actually waking up, but also balancing out between that left and right starts to balance out a bit, because obviously, you know, those extremes is not a good thing either. And I do believe it all has a purpose to begin with. And that's why, because, you know, we're like, oh, it takes so long for everything to, but yeah, obviously we're so many people and, you know, so many different opinions and beliefs and whatnot. And in order for all that to balance out, it will take time, and for everybody that's on their own path. And some people are not supposed to be red pilled at all. They're here for a complete different reason on earth, right? So I don't look at it anymore as in, oh God, I need to red pill, right? Because I don't see the point anymore of it. It's also in the collective consciousness, I do believe, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I may, could I just tell people where to find me and what to expect?
Yes, please. And I just put the link for your show today in the chat also.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've got a great one coming up here at the top of the hour. Of course, it's 4:20. I only get 3 times a day anymore. I get 4:20, I get 11:11, and 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the only 3 I'm allowed anymore.
That's funny.
It's weird. I must have a pineal gland the size of a golf ball. See, I don't remember. So please find me and my friends. It's a show called Untethering every weekday at 5:00 Eastern. And we are working together in a variety of areas, and they're kind of connected, but some shows are about letting go of things that no longer serve us and doing that inner work and that quiet time to let God to speak with us and to prepare ourselves to have the armor of God, to be a good soldier and a loving servant leader for those around us. We talk about AI and the future of mankind and why artificial intelligence, why are they putting it in our hands right now? Does that tie into the plan? Is there a reason why they're giving us a dumbed down version of AI, like our first box of 8 crayons, when I know they've got 64 over here with a sharpener, but we get this one and we're trying to figure out why these tools, why now? How does that tie into the Great Awakening and what's coming? We are definitely talking about a look into the crystal ball and what the next 50 years are probably going to be like for our grandchildren. And we talk about living in a world absent of all evil. And we have some really interesting discussions on technology and philosophy and a lot about God. So if those interest you and you're interested in learning more ways to get through whatever's coming on the second half of this hurricane, it might be an hour worth your time. And we do an hour a day. I try to respect people's time. And if it's really cooking, we might go an hour and a half, but I try to cut it and let people get on with their day. So.
Well, that's so awesome. And Scott, I love talking to you. Every time I do, I always learn something. And thank you for being so, open and real and, and also hopeful and helping people through this. You've been a great, North Star for a lot of people going through all of this Great Awakening stuff. And so make sure you guys are following him. I put the link in the chat so you guys can go. You have about a 35 minutes until Scott's show starts over there. So make sure you're following him and go get a drink of water and then go hang out with him over there. And
before I go, I got to compliment you two. I didn't think there were any unfilled niches left in the Great Awakening. And for you guys to go headlong into the pain and look at it and embrace it and acknowledge it and then reframe it. I'm sending everybody to watch your shows.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, me and Kate have been at it for a long time. Actually, I've done it on my channel as well, and we've done it on hers and back and forth. And so, I think this always have been a topic to our hearts anyway, because, it's important. And people want to get back to their authenticity, but also know there is no weakness in falling, in going through that darkness. In fact, a lot of people learn from it and know that they're not alone in it, and also that you can get out of it. So
for sure. A couple things. Ashley said, I try to remember that nothing lasts forever, good or bad. That's a great message. Thank you for becoming a monthly supporter. Thank you to Divining Rod. And just to let everyone know, next week, Patricia and I will now be doing this show on Mondays at the same time. So we will no longer be on Wednesdays. We'll be at Mondays at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. So let you guys know that. And I love you guys. And we will make sure you go check out Scott on his channel as well. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.